One of the more humbling elements of ministry is really seeing the way that life can continually come down hard on one person or family. Things like relational disappointments, health issues, job losses, financial troubles, or the whole gauntlet at once. The way and speed at which life can turn sometimes seems cruel, heartless, and random. And the reason I say this is humbling from a pastoral perspective is because it forces me to ask some questions to myself. I mean, really, how would I legitimately keep faith when the rug is pulled out from under my feet again and again? If I were in their shoes, how would I keep my faith alive when the rug is pulled out under my feet again and again? Or more like broadly, how does faith exist when you can't catch any sort of break? Well, I share this with you because one answer to these questions is given in our gospel reading this morning, and it goes something like this. When you can't catch a break, remember that Jesus couldn't either. When you can't catch a break, remember that Jesus couldn't either. You see, sometimes because of Christmas cards and movies, we forget just how nasty the circumstances were around Jesus' birth and early childhood. And this really hit me when I took Isaiah and Zoe to a petting zoo when they were younger. Even though it was neat to see them interact with the animals, the experience was so dirty from the smell of excrement on their shoes. I seriously wanted to take my kids and give them a bath in Purell when they got home. Now, what's this have to do to Jesus? Well, for all intents and purposes, he was born in a petting zoo. From the moment he breathed his outside air, it reeked of everything I smelt at that zoo. And that's not a sanitary way for the eternally pre-existent Son of God to enter the universe. And that's what he did. From the moment he breathed the outside air, Jesus couldn't catch a break. Now, that's the part of the story we all know quite well. In our passage today, we discover that in the days and years following Jesus' birth, his situation didn't really improve. Now, when they were, if you're familiar with the wise men, they had met the baby Jesus, and then they reported to Herod his location, unbeknownst to, before they had reported to Herod his location, they had departed, and an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. Now, raising young children is difficult. From the sleepless nights to the endless feeding to barely being able to function in the outside world, those first few years are challenging in a unique way. But the reality is, in my own life at least, Kendra and I had it good. We had a roof over our head, adequate supplies, and a network of support. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph had the exact opposite. After having a moment of respite with the wise men, they receive another curveball. Rather than facing those first few difficult years of parenting with the comfort of familiar surroundings and even family and friends to help out, they have to make haste to journey to the foreign land of Egypt and do it alone. Again, I can't help but compare this to my own experiences with raising small children. For example, I used to dread my road trips from Toledo, Ohio to Pittsburgh with my kids. And I used to love road trips, but it was really hard. First, you had to pre-pack everything for the baby, and then if the baby would cry, you would have to arch your back in a way that defied gravity, and you basically pull out your back. I mean, it was rough in the Honda Sonata during those years. But once again, the true reality was less daunting. It was 4 hours in a climate-controlled car on the wonderful Ohio Turnpike to Pittsburgh. I mean, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, on the other hand, traveled some 300 miles by donkey or more than likely on foot. The total time for the trip would be upwards of 3 to 5 weeks. I mean, just imagine the inner dialogue that Mary or Joseph could have been having during this journey. For example, Mary, with her body famished, the baby crying from lack of food, and the sun beating down on her burnt neck, If she was anything like me, she would remember the angel's words, "Greeting, O favored one, the Lord is with you." And then she'd think, what does this mean that I'm favored? I have been scandalously perceived as pregnant outside of marriage. I had a baby in a stable, and now my whole family's life is threatened. What does this mean? What are you doing, God? I mean, truly, even in his early life, Jesus couldn't catch a break. Nothing went in his favor, and it seemed as though the whole universe was out to get him. And sadly, this didn't change as he grew older. For example, 100 years or hundreds of years before he was born, the prophet Isaiah described Jesus as a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. In a similar way, reflecting on the life of Jesus, the author of Hebrews says, in the days of his flesh, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears. In the passage we read this morning, it said that Jesus was made perfect through suffering. And then in the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we see the life of sorrow played out before our eyes. We see Jesus frustrated with the people's lack of understanding. We see him dodging persecution after persecution. We see him weeping over the death of his loved ones. We see him crying over the fate of Jerusalem. We see him bending over and praying to God, sweating with blood, and really about the realities that would soon overtake him. And finally, on the cross, we hear him exclaiming, my God, why have you forsaken me?" In his earthly life, Jesus hardly experienced what most of us imagine as the victorious Christian life. Truly, Jesus couldn't catch a break. Now, how this truth applies to our lives in the here and now is masterfully proclaimed in our second reading today. There, the author of Hebrews says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need." Simply put, God can be trusted amid your suffering because he has firsthand experience with it. As one author put it, the God on whom we rely knows what suffering is all about, not merely in the way that God knows everything, but by experience. So, are you lonely? Jesus came to be lonely as you are lonely. Call upon him in your time of need. Are you afraid? Jesus came to be afraid as you are afraid. Cling to him, for he knows how it feels. Do you feel abandoned by God? Jesus came to not only feel abandonment, but also to be abandoned upon your behalf. You are not alone, despite how alone you feel. Ultimately, the fact that Jesus couldn't catch a break gives us comfort and consolation. God is not aloof. For every dark place in our lives, Jesus can say, "I know, my child. I know." And for me, this gives me room to breathe amid suffering. It gives me freedom. Now when pain and temptation come barreling down, I know the one to whom I cry not only hears, but knows what I'm enduring. "Sean, like you, I was afraid. Rest in me. Sean, like you, I wept. Call out to me. Sean, like you, I felt rejection. Be still and know." So this week, and really a year when you can't catch a break, remember that Jesus couldn't either. When your heart is broken, remember his was too. And to hear his voice say to you, "I know, child, I know." If you forget it, reread our scriptures for today. And when all else fails, yell honestly in prayer. For as the scriptures say, he is able to sympathize with our weakness. Let us pray. Jesus, we thank you for the life that you lived on our behalf, so that we might be able to come to you in our time of need, knowing that you do not send us away, but rather you know and you sympathize with our weakness. Help us find strength and freedom from that good news, knowing that you perfectly endured everything so that we can imperfectly come to you and receive the forgiveness, strength, and consolation we need. We lift this all before you. Amen.